Hi, everybody. This is David Norrie, and we are getting ready for week seven of Rock and Roll to a Better You. Hey!
All right.
I knew a little patience would pay off. So, for those of you that are watching on the replay, guys, thanks for your patience there for that first couple minutes. We are here live with Dr. Paul Beyondich from Canada. Those of you who are familiar with Dr. Paul and have seen him before, you know he's a wealth of knowledge. I will tell you this much. I know that he is a great family man. I know you have 3 children, right?
Yep.
And your lovely wife. And I
Victoria.
know that you train Olympic athletes. I know that you've been involved with Isogenics for some time. And I know that your passion lies in making the good better, taking athletes who are already doing good and making them into world-class athletes. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your experience with that, Dr. Paul?
Yeah, thanks, David, and thanks to everybody for being patient and being on this call. I've worked with numerous athletes from Canadian national team, Ultimate Fighting Championship, Major League Soccer, Major League Baseball, tons of amateur athletes, world champions. So, and I study nutrition globally. So I look at what's going on in Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand. My athletes are, global athletes. So I'm trying to, search the world for the best nutrition and move the metrics, because I always say it's very easy to make an athlete worse, and it's very, very difficult to make them better. So, selecting the right nutrition, makes the difference between, signing a multi-million-dollar deal, winning world championships, or losing one.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's my passion. That's what I love to do, and hoping to share some of those tips and techniques today.
So I'm looking forward to this, and I'll tell you what. I went to a personal trainer last week, and because I was a personal trainer back in the day, and what the personal trainers are doing now, the evolution of science in the gym has blown me away. When they're talking about what they're training, how they're training, and then we have the evolution of science in terms of our food and our nutrition. So one of the things I know that you are honed in on all the things that have been before and what's coming around the corner and what's currently happening now. One of the first questions I have for you, I know a lot of people are really high on the ketogenic diet. So just curious, what are your thoughts on the ketogenic diet? Good, bad, somewhere in between?
Generally speaking, to be honest, I'm not a fan of the ketogenic diet. I mean, it's been around since about 1963. Dr. Robert Atkins was really the first one who pioneered this. So this is kind of old news, and it's been, renamed, rehashed, low carb diet, no carb diet, Atkins diet, ketogenic diet. And I think kind of keto has become popular, to be honest with you, just because it kind of sounds cute. It's a cute word, ketogenic. People like to say keto. It's like a video game or something, right? But let's put things in perspective here. One of the top ketogenic proponents is talking about now. What's important for him to do is to be on a ketogenic diet and then carb cycle. Okay, and that's you know just to be clear, that's not a ketogenic diet. Okay, that's you can't be a little bit pregnant, right? So you're either pregnant or you're not pregnant. And so, having said that, ketogenic diet has a purpose, but you have to really understand, like, what's the purpose? What's the function of a ketogenic diet? Why are you doing this? What's the benefit of it? And if we really look at it, ketogenic diet is designed to produce ketones, right? So we want to elevate the ketones in our body. But then the second question has to come up is why? Like, why would someone want to elevate ketones? What's their functions and what do they do? Well, if we look at, the brain's primarily source of fuel is actually sugar. It's glucose, right? We use tons and tons of glucose. I burned up a whole bunch of glucose trying to get onto this, onto the Facebook live call. So I may not have much left, so I'm gonna have to resort to ketones very shortly. But right, so the question was really like, what's the function of a ketogenic diet? Why do we want to be on one? And the purpose is really to raise ketones levels in the blood, and it's to support an area where the body is not able to use glucose. And so in other words, you take a patient who maybe has dementia, right? Or they've lost their ability to convert sugar. The brain has lost its ability to convert glucose or sugar into energy. So that person then has very difficult ability to have brain function. So memory, recollection of things, spatial awareness, all those things. But the body, the brain, has a backup fuel source for the brain, and it's called ketones. So if you produce ketones naturally from the body, all of a sudden the brain function returns. And you can do it, through MCT oil or the breakdown of other things that produce ketones. And then, their brain function improves. And some studies have shown that you can improve up to 30%. So a ketogenic diet, for the purposes of a metabolic disease where, the body's ability to that's lost its sugar use, is very warranted. So in cases like epilepsy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, these are studies have shown that ketogenic diets have benefit. In terms of performance as an athlete, absolutely not. Glycogen or sugar is very important to produce power. And if an athlete's like, hey, you know what, I just want to lose some weight and get a little leaner, power to weight ratio, intermittent fasting has way better benefits than a ketogenic diet. And particularly intermittent fasting, we know can increase your growth hormone response. So there's, any which way you look at it, for a healthy individual consciously choosing to go on a ketogenic diet, it makes no sense to me. If there's a metabolic disorder where you require ketones to be raised to compensate someplace, then it's required. In other words, if you're running let's say a factory, you've got tons of machinery and you're producing something, and your factory is being run by electricity. That's your primary energy source, and it's a very powerful energy source. And you have a blackout, and you have do you have a backup source of energy? And most people will have backup diesel generators. Okay, so your backup diesel generators, they fire on. They have the minimum amount of power to get your factory running just so it can function and stay alive. And in essence, that's what really ketones, that's the really function. It's a backup energy source. It's not a primary energy source.
So is that why it's become so popular? Because it's really, is it tricking the body and people are getting lean on it? What's been the craze? What's been the benefits of it?
Well, it's primarily fat loss, because you drop your carbs, you're going to lose weight very quickly, right? We know that 1 gram of carbohydrate holds 3 grams of water. So the moment you drop your carbohydrates, it doesn't have to be a ketogenic diet, but even a low carb diet, then you get really quick weight loss. And that quick weight loss, water weight loss, then, gets the person motivated and,
Right.
off they go staying on it. But anyone who's done a low carb diet or no carb diet knows after about 3 weeks, you hit a wall.
Yeah.
And you hit a fat loss wall. And in fact, your body actually really stops or hinders fat loss after about 3 weeks on a no carb diet. And this is where this concept of carb cycling comes in. They say, hey, hold on a second, because your body's going into panic mode, going, hey, hold on a second, this no carb thing, I don't like it. Because carbohydrates are our body uses them strategically, right? So, serotonin, the neurotransmitter in your brain that makes you feel happy and puts you to bed nicely, is primarily utilized by carbohydrate consumption. Ketogenic guys will say, hey, your body can still make serotonin, without carbs. Yeah, it can, but that's not its primary, function. So in a healthy individual, we really want to be operating all our energy systems in its primary function.
Yeah.
Not in a backup mode, like the example I did with a diesel engine.
Well, it would seem to be like we've talked about this, Dr. Paul, on some of these other calls. Is we're in it for the long haul, and it seems like everybody's trying to trick their body. Everybody's trying to get the quick results. Where if we just correct things and do it the right way, we're going to have a much better, longer lasting results, because the body, when it's functioning at proper levels, is really the miracle. And if you do the right thing. So I totally see that. So we're saying that, look, for those people who want to do the low carb or no carbohydrate side, look, I've experienced it. And when you introduce carbs back into your body, there's definitely a chemical response where it is like a drug, and you will just shovel things like French fries or sweet potato. You'll shovel them into your mouth because your body's craving them so much. So maybe it's better not to trick the body. Maybe it's better to go with intermittent fasting, do these things, because in the long run you want to be healthy for a longer period of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense, and that's what I subscribe to, 100%. And people fought me on this and said, hey, you know what? I've had great results with, exogenous ketones, right? It's a big supplement out there, ketones, right? So people saying, oh yeah, I feel great on it. What's the problem with taking ketones as a supplement, right? And if I'm going to be completely objective on this, there are some benefits in very certain circumstances. Like the liver breaks down fat, right? So if your liver is not functioning properly to break down fat, ketone supplements or exogenous ketones have shown in short durations to kind of prime the liver
Mm-hmm.
for that fat breakdown. So it can help somebody who's in a very obese state.
Okay.
They can introduce ketone supplements. What it does, it'll suppress a little bit appetite, improve the mood slightly, and just start that, prime that fat loss. But the problem is that's very short lived, because anyone who's used ketone supplements for longer periods of time, it's artificially raising your ketone levels. And so what happens? What does your liver do? Well, your liver says, hey, we've got too much ketones.
Yeah.
So it's going to shut down its own fat breakdown again. So there's a negative inhibition comes into play with taking supplementation. So again, I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
You're much better off, doing it the natural way, getting the liver functioning and breaking down fat
Yeah.
as it's intended to do.
I agree with that 100%, because I'm thinking long-term goals. I want to be fit for a long time, not just for a short time. And I certainly don't want to trick the body into stop making things that I would naturally make. So that's a good thing. So we got that down. Let's talk about, in 2013, in the energy and performance category, you guys know Dr. Paul was he was an IsaBody finalist, right? So you had a dramatic turnaround, and here's somebody who practices it, knows it, and you got shredded without really doing cardio, which, if anybody's listening to this right now goes, what? You got shredded without doing cardio? You mean I don't have to? So this is going to be good. This is going to be good. We've always believed that you need to do cardio till the cows come home in order to get shredded, but maybe not. Where are we going? What's going on here?
No, absolutely not. And the science is really clear about this, and it's getting stronger and stronger. And obviously, anyone who's tried this out knows it works perfectly. Bodybuilders for years have not been doing cardio, right? They've been just, doing lifting weights and getting six pack and shredded and huge, by the way, not shredded and small. So the answer, the secret is, I'm gonna sum it up actually into two words, and then I'll explain, what's going on. The whole concept is to produce as much lactic acid as you can possibly produce. That's it. If you come in with the mindset of I want to produce as much lactic acid in my training session as possible, then you're going to have the most dramatic body composition changes in your life. It has nothing to do with time.
Light bulb moment. That's a light bulb. That's a light bulb moment for me.
Absolutely.
Cool. So how do we do that?
Well, let's look at the science a little bit behind HIIT training, high intensity interval training, right? We know that the movement is moving away from steady state cardio, going on the treadmill for 30, 40 minutes. People are talking about, it's been shown not to aid in fat loss, that we should do high intensity interval training for a short period of time. How does that work? Because if we subscribe to the calories in, calories out concept, it makes no sense. Because how can a 5-minute high intensity interval training session burn more calories than a 45-minute moderate treadmill run? How does that work? Okay, and McMaster University in Canada studied this, and what they did is they put somebody on a bike, and they had them ride the bike at the highest resistance possible for 20 seconds. So we're talking full out blast, 20-second blast crank up that resistance, 1 minute rest, 20-second blast, 1 minute rest, 20-second blast. So essentially, you've exercised, the time of exercising has been 1 minute. Okay, that's it, and you're off, you're done. And they did that 3 times a week. And they compared it to someone doing 45 minutes of steady state treadmill running at a moderate pace. It's pretty good. That's a big clip. Okay. And after 3 months, they compared, you know, the metrics, the biomarker changes, and they were exactly the same. So the guy or girl doing 1 minute, 3 minutes a week, compared to 45 minutes 3 times a week, produced the exact same body composition change, cholesterol changes, blood pressure changes. All the biomarkers were exactly the same. So why is that? What's going on? And what happens is when that high intensity training, the high intensity exercise, that burn, when you're feeling that burn, you're producing tons of lactic acid. The more lactic acid it comes in your muscle and into your blood, ultimately, it stimulates the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. And growth hormone, then that elevated growth hormone release lasts for, you know, a long period of time. We get the repair, recovery, and growth happening. We get the fat loss happening. We get the anabolic response happening.
Wow.
For hours and hours and hours and hours.
Wow. So what are a couple of exercises? Like I discovered recently, you tell me if I'm wrong, I love pushing the sled because that gets my heart rate really sky high. Like, you know, pushing the sled. I know that a lot of people do that. Would that be something high intensity? Would you consider?
Yeah, absolutely. Pushing the sled. But the splitting hairs on this, how this works is you have to push the sled to failure.
Okay.
Failure is the key. You have to get into that burn and stay in that burn as long as possible, and ultimately to failure. So let's move into weight training first.
Okay.
And this is how I did my body, the 2013 IsaBody,
Yeah.
you know,
IsaBody challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
And my wife Renata, you know, she was a finalist as well. She only did 10 minutes of weight training. That's it. And she changed her body with the same concept. But the intention of the weight training is to reach failure every set, is to reach maximum fatigue every set.
Wow.
Now, it has nothing to do with weight. It's not talking about lifting heavy. So you don't have to start lifting heavy and injure yourself. But if it's a 10-pound weight or a 5-pound weight, whatever it is, you have to get to failure and fatigue. That's where that lactic acid is being produced. If your rest intervals are nice and short, then again, you're going to be generating higher amounts of lactic acid.
Well, let me ask you one quick question. I think everybody's idea of what failure and fatigue is, I know there's people out here, their failure and fatigue is a lot longer or more reps than somebody else's failure and fatigue. So what should we be judging the failure and fatigue? Is there a certain way? Are we talking about like literally you can't do another rep?
Literally, you cannot do another rep. Yeah. And then there's something called, you know, supersetting, right? Where you, let's say you're at, you know, 25 pounds. I'm just giving a number, okay? Whatever the exercise is. And at rep 10, you're absolutely failed. You can't lift any longer. Well, guess what? You drop down to 20 pounds. And then you might be able to pump out 1 or 2 more. And then you drop down to 15 pounds. And then you pump out maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more. And then to 5 pounds. And then, you know, you're down to no pounds. And you're going, holy crap, right? But the burning is incredible. And this has nothing to do with time. You can do this, you know, an amazing workout in 15 minutes.
Wow. This is
20
cool.
minutes.
This is cool. I love the super setting. I love the drop setting because I think that's key, especially for, you know, we talk a lot about injury prevention, and people have been in this thing where I'm going to lift as heavy as weight as I can, but it's really about fatiguing the muscle well beyond failure. So when your muscles get, you know, the old adage, Dr. Paul, we are old lifters, was to be when you're at failure, you get a spot or you start cheating a little bit to crank out a couple more reps with that weight. But what you're saying is muscle growth too and fat loss, if we drop set, it's equal?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this system, what I'm talking about here, is the ideal for body composition change.
Okay.
So fat loss and muscle building. Strength training is a different topic. We'll have to do another call for that. You obviously you're going to get stronger, but most people struggle, especially women are struggling with body composition change. They're like, I'm in the gym and nothing's happening, and I don't know what's going on. And what's going on is that you need to start picking up weights, you need to start lifting, you need to start squatting, and you need to start exercising to failure. Of course, do it safely. You don't need to lift heavy, and you're going to see amazing body composition changes happening.
I, for one, am ready to try it because I love it, and it's going to be tough. But if we can save time, because it's better than being in the gym for an hour, and we get in and get it done, I think you start to acclimate yourself to it. It's like you hit that wall, and maybe the first day we try this, it's going to be tough, and then you acclimate yourself and say, drop set, I can do it, and we start seeing the changes in our body, more muscle, less body fat, and then that's the proof is in the pudding. My question for you would be, before, in the past, you've talked about the body being acidic post-workout, right? We talked about that's why we take greens, correct? So is there any kind of compensation if we're doing this high-intensity HIIT training? Do we need to take more of a green supplement to bring our body back to alkalinity, or is that not true?
No, not really. I think the only thing there's two things. I always ask, what's the goal?
Yeah.
Okay, we got to keep in mind what's the goal. So if we're performance based, okay, so if we're results driven, meaning we got to win a championship, beat a time, whatever it is, that nutritional program is different. Then we want to buffer lactic acid as much as we can. We want to, if there's known lactic acid buffers, we want to consume them prior to training, after training. But if we're not in competition mode, if we're in training mode,
Okay.
where we're trying to change the body, trying to change the outcome, then we want to allow that lactic acid to be as high as possible. Now, that's not saying that we don't want to be consuming an alkaline diet, right, in general. So greens is something that should be just a daily occurrence, in your regimen and program. But you don't want to intentionally take a supplement to be blocking or hindering lactic acid production in the training mode.
So, and lastly, before we go on to the next subject, just so we know, so we judge this by the pump. Is this something we're judging? Obviously, you're saying to failure when we drop the weight, but would it be also correct to say, hey, look, if we got a nice pump, that means there's a lot of lactic acid, or is that something that I'm wrong on?
The pump would be more related to blood flow.
Okay.
Lactic acid would be related to burn.
So we're going back to feel the burn.
Feel the burn.
All right. Well, this is great stuff. So we got the ketogenic diet we talked about. We talked about that was very important. We talked about just now about really to failure, how we could stay lean, keep muscle without being on the treadmill all day. And it's high intensity training going to failure with drop sets and supersets. I love it. So this next question is one I'm really looking forward to hearing. We're going to talk about protein. So we all know that protein is the building blocks of muscle. We know that we need it. We know that if we want to look good, we need it. But what's the limit on how much we can take in one serving? If I open a muscle magazine today, or I go into any of these, stores in the mall, they're gonna, it's gonna be like 50 grams of protein. And it's gonna have some huge guy on there, and we've always wondered, can I consume that much? Can the body consume that much, and how much can we consume? And what's the really guideline that we use on this?
Yeah, great question. It's amazing, the answers you hear, or read on the internet or on YouTube, and people fight you on this. Say, hey, you know what? Studies show that you can only absorb 20 grams of protein. So anything over 20 grams, it's useless, right? And then what's interesting is the research, that needle moved, and they went, you know what? New research came out and said 30 grams. We can use 30 grams in a serving, per serving. The body can use it. Studies have supported it. Okay, so all those guys supporting a 20-gram, thing went, oh, okay, now it's moved up to 30. And then the research came out again, and now it's at 40.
Wow.
So it's like, what's going on here, right? And I think what's problem is this common sense is not common, right? and let's just use logic and reason. I think that's always a good place we need to start with first, okay? Let's take a 120-pound female or male, it doesn't matter, compared to 260-pound male. So that, or female. So that 120-pound person body, generally speaking, can absorb less protein than a 260-pound male. I think that's logical, okay? So that actually breaks this whole 20, 30, or even 40-gram protein per serving recommendation. It's really based, number one, on body weight. How big is the individual? A big guy or big girl can eat more and requires more protein, more fuel, more carbohydrates, more everything. That's number one. Number two, it's the body's demand. So when I wake up in the morning, for me, my body size, okay, is my body asking for 50 grams of protein in the morning? I just woke up, right?
Yeah.
Like why would it be asking for 50 grams of protein? Okay. Now, let's say it's the afternoon and I'm doing a crazy leg day with, supersets, and I'm going hard, long, or I'm, like CrossFitters who are crazy, who do, multi-complex moves for an hour and 15 minutes. Well, that body demand, the protein demand that the body's asking for, is a lot different at that time. So it's also then, what is the exercise requirement? What is the body's demanding based on your exercise? That moves that metric as well. The third is age. So there's a term that we've heard, called insulin sensitivity, and that's in, with diabetics
Right.
and whatnot. But that term exists in protein. It's called protein sensitivity. And so what the research knows is the younger you are, the body is very efficient at processing proteins. So a younger individual needs less protein. Unfortunately, the older we are, we need more.
Okay.
So we go beyond that 20 to 40 gram limit because the efficiency of our body processing those proteins goes down. That's called protein
Okay.
sensitivity.
Interesting. So I have a quick question. So my question is always this: whether it's food or supplementation, doctor, we hear the word bioavailability. If I'm eating that egg, if I'm eating that piece of chicken, if I'm eating that steak, or if I'm drinking this protein shake, how much am I absorbing? If I'm trying to get my protein in, is there a certain bioavailability? Is there anything to that, or is that just something that should be overlooked?
I don't really subscribe to that term as much as really breaking it down this way, okay? Slow and fast, right? And what I mean by that is this. Like protein supplements, like whey protein supplementations or plant-based supplement proteins, okay? They're going to absorb faster
Okay.
than meat-based or whole food-based proteins like fishes or chickens or steaks, okay? So whole food protein sources are, it takes about 3 hours to break those proteins down, as opposed to whey protein, which is, starting to be absorbed immediately or very, very soon after. Same plants are based are a little slower, but they're, we're talking, Porsches and Lamborghinis. They're both fast. Okay. So, I know one's faster than the other, but they're both fast. Okay. So what we're looking at here is what's the function? What's the use? Is there a strategic use that we're going to use something that's faster absorbing versus slower absorbing? And yes, so nutrient timing. We finished our workout. We want to get those amino acids, those branched chain amino acids in as fast as possible. So whey protein has been the king for that, specifically on denatured whey protein. It has the highest naturally occurring branched chain amino acids, your BCAAs, which stimulates the repair, recovery, and growth. Now you're ahead of the curve. Now you're repairing, recovering, growing faster. 1 hour later, we're consuming, a slower based protein like a chicken, a fish, a steak, turkey, doesn't matter. And we've got that, 3 hour continual breakdown of amino acids and absorption. So the only time, bioavailability comes into play is when it comes to soy-based proteins, okay? Which is just a junk protein, and it's, the bioavailability of soy-based proteins is low for a number of reasons. Number two, it just has 50% less branched chain amino acids, which means you have 50% less repair, recovery, or growth. So there's no purpose for anyone, to be training, expecting body composition changes, and then, going to soy-based, never the, isoflavones or the estrogen component that you're getting.
Okay.
Because I've never had an athlete come into my office and say, hey, Paul, you know what? My 6-pack has turned into an 8-pack. I'm feeling a little bit too masculine these days. Do you have any protein that can put me in touch with my feminine side? It doesn't happen, okay? But if it did, I would say, hey, you know what? Soy-based proteins, go for it. Consume as much as you want. You'll get a nice dose of estrogen, and
right.
you'll feel good.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. And that's incredible. That's true. And soy-based protein is just not the way to go. Undenatured way is the best. And I know you talked about that window. We got one more question, but that window, guys, so important. That post-workout window when your body's craving it. Can you just give me 30 seconds on that window, the post-workout, when your body's most susceptible to absorb these proteins?
Yeah, so we look at, once you've finished training, okay, you've burnt a lot of calories, you've burnt a lot of energy, you've burnt up micronutrients, carbs, fats, proteins, all kinds of things, okay? And what happens is when your heart rate comes down to resting, it signals the brain, hey, this guy's stopped killing me, okay? He stopped exercising, okay? It's like the storm is over, right? Nice, calm, the waters are calm, okay? And then everybody comes out of hiding, and the body releases insulin. It says, okay, let's go. Insulin's a transporter, right? So it wants to transport nutrients, carbs, fats, proteins, micronutrients back into those muscles you've just burnt up. Okay. So depending how out of shape or in shape you are, your heart rate may come down to resting, maybe 6 minutes after your training, 10 minutes after your training, 5, it depends. But let's just generally say 10 minutes. It's usually the general rule, okay? You're in the change room, you're getting changed, you're calming down, right? Now is the time to make your protein shake, your undenatured whey protein shake. And because what happens is we have to add transit time into this, right? So when we drink that protein shake, it's going to sit in our stomach for about 10 minutes. It goes into the intestine, another 10 minutes. There's really about a 20-minute time, 20 minutes from the time you drink the protein shake to the time it's hitting your bloodstream. Now we know some of the proteins and micronutrients are absorbed sublingually right away, but generally speaking, it's 20 minutes. So and that insulin window is going to stay elevated for 45 minutes post workout. So in English, okay, here's what we're doing. We're going into the dressing room, change room, in your car. 10 minutes after, you drink your protein shake. 1 hour later, you eat a whole balanced meal. That's it. That's the simple version.
Love it. Simple. That's what I love. So 10 minutes after, protein shake. 1 hour later, whole meal. Got it? Good. Awesome. All right. 3 amazing tips. And then the last one is, you train so many athletes, these young athletes, and the world, like I said before, is just changing so quick. Things are happening with the body and technology, like you said. What we're able to measure now and really figure out what's going on compared to 5, 10, 15 years ago is amazing. So my question for you is, since you're on the forefront of this, what are some of the patterns? What are some of the trends? What are some of the things that you're seeing in the world of performance, some of the things in the world of nutrition that are really exciting you right now that we see on the horizon?
Well, I think the technology of wearable technology is it's getting interesting. I'll put it to you that way, right? The more information we're getting from biofeedback markers, the more we can tell about our body. I did a seminar with the the strength conditioning coach of the Irish Olympic team, and they use heart rate variability. So they have their athletes wear heart rate variability monitors. They wake up in the morning, it scans them, and it basically then sends a message to the coach whether he's overtrained, whether he's optimal, or whether he is slightly fatigued. And so what's so cool is he doesn't allow the athlete to see that feedback. And so what happens is that athlete walks into the gym and he goes, Jerry, I don't know why I said Jerry. I'm just saying, Jerry, today is going to be a light day. We're going to do some calisthenics, we're going to do some stretching, we're going to work on our technique. And Jerry's like, Thank goodness, because I'm feeling a little tired today.
Right.
Okay. And then, next day, Tom walks in and Tom's jacked. He's ready. He's like, he's pumped. And the coach knows that because the biometrics tell him this guy's ready to go. And so coach drives him into a hard training session. His body's ready for it. And then, conversely, there's the guy who's medium. So we do a little bit of
Right.
training, a little bit of rest, And so you're dialing into the body's, system, what is it ready for? And that's really the next level, in my opinion, where the
Yeah.
wearable technology is going to be starting reading your biomarkers, better than yourself.
Yeah, I actually, at some of the gyms that you guys can go to now, some of these higher end gyms, they'll actually put the oxygen mask on you and put you through a system to find out where you burn the most fat. Like when we talk about, throwing a dart in the dark and hoping that you're doing it the right way. With the technology we have now, sometimes we can really be intentional about where we're supposed to be, how we're supposed to be doing it. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. What about anything else in performance or nutrition that you're looking at?
Well, genetics are always huge. Getting genetic profiling, it's amazing because you find out that maybe you're an upregulator or downregulator of certain enzymes or nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're like, holy crap! You know what? I've been taking too many B vitamins.
Yeah.
Or I need to triple my B vitamins. It's those things. So it's genetically profiling, finding out, what your body genetically needs.
Cool.
And it's complicated, it's expensive, and as time goes on it'll get cheaper and more efficient and easier. But what's going to happen is just people are going to be running their genetic code through and spitting out a profile to saying, hey, you know what, this is what your body needs, this is based on your genes. And we have athletes who are doing it, and they feel amazing.
I've been doing that visually for the last 15 years with the genetic calves. I've been looking at them and saying, your body needs to do more calf raises, because I've seen my dads and my brothers, and genetically it's not a blessing. But no, on a serious note, Angelique and I have done some blood testing recently, nutrient testing and things like that. That's kind of telling us where we're at in terms of that. It's very interesting because what they can tell you now, and certainly with Isagenix we have every different micronutrient and vitamin available. So if we can learn that we need more of one or the other, then certainly it would be helpful. I love that kind of information because we want to make exercise, we want to make nutrition easier. We want to make it smarter, not harder. So that's where the science, and that's where you always help us kind of disseminate what is myth and what is real science. And I always appreciate that for you. And I think we got a lot out of this. So I really appreciate you coming on. And I know people are going to share this. So guys, to review, we talked about the ketogenic diet. We talked about what it means to really lose body fat. And we talked about high intensity training. We talked about protein, the windows and how much you can actually absorb for your body weight. And then some of these other things like really what we're doing with science, your heart rate monitors, things like that. Any other thing that you wanted to touch on or leave us with? What's going on in your world right now?
The thing I'm getting really excited about these days is working with the younger athletes,
Mm-hmm.
the athletes that are trying to become pro, wanting to go to the next level. It's really exciting times. And, we all played sports as kids and we look back at, what we thought maybe was tough training or not. But today it's getting crazy, with the younger athletes. They're training like pros.
Yeah.
They're actually even training harder than pros, because they might be going to 2 or 3 different coaches or 2 or 3 different, programs, in their sport. And each coach is driving that athlete full power. And it's not good. I mean, there's a limit to the body. And I always say that, the repair, the recovery, and the growth happens when you're resting, not when you're training.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I'm seeing, unfortunately, a lot of overtraining in young athletes, and the nutrition is not even existent. It's not even there. So a lot of young athletes with injuries, sleep problems, translates into poor school grades, marks, concentrations. So it's trying to dialing athletes back.
Right.
It's pulling them back, having more rest, more sleep, better nutrition, and even something, if there's any parents on the line right now, even changing one thing as simple as the post recovery shake, even just that alone. I mean, it's for my pro athletes, it's changed them, you know, but for
Yeah.
the young athletes, it's so important. And it's you know, that's what I'm really interested right now, passionate about, is working with the youth and in getting them that information now.
Right, because you're not only a doctor and a coach, but you're a father. So your kids are how old now? They're right in that prime sports playing age.
8, 10, and 12, you know, and I have, you know, my oldest boy is trending at an elite level. I mean, you know, fathers are a little bit delusional with their kids. Let's, you know, so they're all gonna be pros, you know, but let's just say they're doing well.
Well,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. And I just can't thank you enough for coming on here. I'm sincere about that. I feel like, and I always tell people, I always brag about you. I say this is a very difficult subject, and it takes a talented person to put it in easily digestible sound bites that we can hear and really take confidence in knowing it, because God knows there's a lot of different things out there that are telling you this, and that. But when it comes to the body, when it comes to nutrition, Dr. Biondic, I trust you, and I know you, and I know you're a good man. So thank you so much for coming on here. We really appreciate your knowledge. Hope God blesses you and your family, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, David, and give my best to Angelique as well. And thanks so much for having me on this call.
All right, we'll see you next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.